There is so much happening at ArtSpace Lima this summer, and here to talk about that is Sally Windle. Sally, oh my goodness gracious. So let's start right off the bat. 73rd Annual Spring Show. Tell us about this.
Right, that's going on right now, and it will end June 7th. So we want to make sure we tell people that this is a great show to see. There's 50 artists that are involved, 150 pieces, and we found that every year it looks different. This year it's really colorful and big paintings. So we've got a lot to see on all 3 floors. And so we just want to make sure that people see this, because this is one of the shows that we don't put a perimeter on it. If you live in California and you can bring your work in, we'll take that. So we've got some really interesting pieces, lots of great awards that were given, but it's always a really good show.
That's fantastic. All right, so summer art at ArtSpace, drawing with Brian Moss.
He's one of those artists that came to Lima about 4 years ago, and he really liked this area. So every year he comes back and helps us out. He's the one that did the large mural that's in our building.
Oh, yeah.
And he loves kids, and he's able to do his anime and manga drawing. So the first week, June 2nd to the 5th, he's going to be there for the drawing kids. And a lot of the kids that we've had in the past summers like the anime and the cartooning. That's really a big thing now.
Yeah.
So he's going to be there for that. And then the second week is another group with him, and that's going to be drawing. But it's not limited to that if kids want to experiment. And when I say kids, I usually am referring to the ones that are out of school, but we've had adults in that class. So even if you're just curious about something, you can be a part of that, because Brian's one of those artists who can appropriate everything from a 5-year-old to a 40-plus-year-old. So it's always a fun time.
Yeah. So when you're visiting ArtSpace Lima and you're looking at all the beautiful pieces of art, there's sometimes you get inspired that you want to try things out as well. So you do offer classes as well, right?
Right. We're going to have an oil painting class, which is very unique. That's a process, and we do have some people that ask for that. But what's a little bit easier is an acrylic class, and the acrylic painting class is going to be June 2nd through the 5th, and then the oil class is the June 9th through the 12th, and it's everything from the basics. So you can do an entry if you want, but then also there are people that may want some advice on the work that they already do. So Brian is, again, great at being multiple approaches to a lot of different art pieces.
Yeah, and you have knitting classes as well, is that true?
This is new. We found that the brain activity that you have with knitting and crocheting actually activates certain portions. So we have an expert, Corey Reed, she's going to come in, and we're doing something that's different. It's, we actually found a pattern in our archives. So she's going to introduce the basics, and then there'll be times where people, if they are a little more advanced, can be a part of this new group. And then we hope to have knitting circles, because that's a really good conversation piece.
Well, it's also kind of like the new yoga in a way.
That's true. A lot of people are doing those,
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it calms you and centers you. And
it heightens your listening skills, which some people think that's a distraction, but if you're doodling or you're knitting, it actually heightens those abilities to listen. So, yeah, we're encouraging that too.
There we go. Now, this is something that I thought was interesting as well. You have an upcoming poetry night.
Right. June 20th, we have decided to open it up, and we have a poet laureate in Lima, Lauren Wolf, and she's contacted some other laureates in Ohio. So they're going to be guests at that evening, but it's open to the public, so we'll also have some regional poets reading, as well as there'll be a time where anyone can maybe take a chance and get their 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
But it's an opportunity to share that expertise and then to listen to some people who are quite well published.
Right, that's very true. Now, you're talking about laureates, well, you can also have a lunch.
That's right. The third Wednesday every month, we have lunch with a laureate, and we provide lunch at Joey's, and they just sit around, they network, they talk about creative ideas, structure, and sometimes it's just about where they find inspiration, or they'll get a prompt. So it's turned into a really nice group that meets, and again, we invite more people to kind of experiment with that creative writing.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. So I think I encourage everybody to go out to that. But there's also the next Exhibit Mel Hubbard retrospective.
He's one of those gentlemen, Mel Hubbard, who was an active artist and inspired a lot of people in this community. He worked at the Ohio Steel Foundry, but he was also involved in lots of churches and civic activities of giving lessons and painting. He also paints, when you see his work, you'll see some Bob Ross-like paintings. Well, he learned from Charles Anderson, who was actually the person who taught Bob Ross.
Really?
So you'll see a whole retrospective, his sketches, his paintings, and then there's also Richard Parrish, which people have seen his work. He's a photographer, does wonderful sports photos, and he's able to capture people like in midair, frozen. So we've told him out of the thousands of pictures to send us his best. So we're going to have him, and then Nora Williams, who is a photographer from South Carolina, whose work has been published in the New York Times and the Post.
Wow.
So she'll be there with that. And so we are highlighting those three artists and kind of the commonality of what they have together.
Yep. And you also have Open Studio every Wednesday from 4 to 8.
That's right. That's turned into a really nice collection of people. Again, networking, little hints, just things that everybody can learn from other artists.
Yeah, well, Sally, thanks for coming on today. I'm exhausted listening to this, but I am excited as well. So go to artspacelima.com for all the information. And, you know, just in case you missed anything or forgot anything, don't forget, go to artspacelima.com. Sally, once again, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
All right, well, don't go away. We'll look at the weather forecast.